That is not the plot of a financial thriller. It is the reality of what happened to Byju's. This is the story of how India's most valuable startup, a company that once slapped its logo on the jerseys of the Indian cricket team and sponsored the FIFA World Cup, went from being the crown jewel of the edtech world to a cautionary tale of greed, hubris, and catastrophic mismanagement. We are talking about a valuation that plummeted from $22 billion to essentially zero. Shareholders wiped out, thousands of employees left unpaid, a founder in hiding, and a legacy in ruins. How does a company with the backing of Mark Zuckerberg, Tiger Global, and BlackRock collapse so spectacularly overnight? To understand the magnitude of this disaster, we have to look beyond the numbers and into the chaotic machinery that tore this empire apart from the inside. The story begins with a man who could do no wrong. Byju Raveendran was the teacher every student wanted, a math wizard who scored 100 percentile on the common admission test twice, not to get into business school, but just for fun. He started teaching classes in auditoriums packed with thousands of students, captivated by his ability to simplify complex concepts. He wasn't just a tutor, he was a rock star. When he launched the Byju's app in 2015, the timing was perfect. India was coming online, data was becoming cheap, and the middle class was desperate to give their children an academic edge. The pitch was seductive. A personalized learning experience that would democratize education. Money started pouring in. Then came the pandemic. For most of the world, COVID-19 was a tragedy. For Byju's, it was a gold rush. With schools closed, Byju's became the only classroom available for millions of students. Revenues skyrocketed. Investors, afraid of missing out on the next Google or Amazon, threw money at the company without asking too many questions. By 2022, Byju's was valued at $22 billion. It was the highest valued startup in India. They were buying companies left and right, spending nearly $1 billion to acquire Akash Educational Services, another $600 million for Great Learning, and $300 million for White Hat Junior. They were expanding into the United States, signing deals with soccer star Lionel Messi, and acting like the money would never run out. But beneath the glossy advertisements and the billion-dollar headlines, a rot was setting in. The company had stopped being an education firm and had turned into a predatory sales machine. Inside the sales offices, the atmosphere was toxic. Managers were drilled to sell at any cost. We've heard horror stories of sales agents shaming low-income parents, telling them that if they didn't buy a Byju's subscription, they were ruining their child's future. They locked parents into multi-year loans they couldn't afford. The product wasn't selling itself. It was being force-fed to the market through aggression and fear. While the sales teams were squeezing parents, the finance department was playing a dangerous game of hide and seek. As early as 2022, cracks began to show. The company delayed filing its audited financial results for nearly 18 months. In the corporate world, delaying your audit is the equivalent of a fire alarm ringing in an empty building. It screams that something is wrong. When the numbers finally came out, they were devastating. The losses were massive. The company was burning cash faster than it could print it. But Byju Raveendran kept spinning the narrative, insisting that profitability was just around the corner. The real turning point, the moment the ground truly gave way, was a $1 billion loan taken from US lenders. Byju's had borrowed $1.2 billion to fuel its global expansion. But as interest rates rose and the tech bubble burst, paying back that loan became impossible. The lenders started asking questions. They wanted to know where the money was. In a bizarre twist that sounds like it was written for a movie, the lenders accused Byju's of hiding $533 million of that cash in an obscure hedge fund in Miami. When investigators went to check the address of this hedge fund, they didn't find a high-tech financial center. They found an IHOP, a pancake restaurant. $500 million, allegedly shielded behind a stack of pancakes. It was the moment the world realized this wasn't just a business failure. It was a chaotic mess. The fall was swift and brutal. 3 board members from key investors, Prosus, Peak XV, and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative resigned en masse, stating that the leadership refused to listen to them. Then, the auditor, Deloitte, one of the biggest accounting firms in the world, quit. They effectively said, "We cannot audit this company because you won't give us the documents." That is the corporate death knell. By 2023 and 2024, the situation on the ground had turned into a nightmare. The company began laying off thousands of employees. We are talking about people who were fired over Zoom calls, or who simply found their email access cut off one morning. Those who remained often went months without salaries. There were reports of fights breaking out in offices, of employees breaking down in tears, of a workplace culture that had turned into a survivalist battleground. Meanwhile, the valuation was in freefall. Prosus, one of the earliest and biggest backers, slashed the valuation of its stake repeatedly. From 22 billion, the internal valuation dropped to 5 billion, then 3 billion, then 1 billion. Finally, in a desperate rights issue to raise emergency cash, the valuation implied was barely $20 million. That is a 99.9% drop. It is the financial equivalent of a nuclear winter. The drama culminated in a boardroom coup. The investors, who had once celebrated Byju Raveendran as a visionary, now wanted him out. They called for an extraordinary general meeting to fire him. The call itself was chaos, with reports of Byju's employees crashing the Zoom link to disrupt the proceedings. But the vote passed. The investors voted to oust the founder from his own company. Byju Raveendran fought back, refusing to accept the vote, fleeing the country to Dubai, and effectively running the company from exile while Indian authorities issued lookout notices against him. Today, Byju's is a shell of its former self. It is battling insolvency proceedings in Indian courts. The US lenders are suing for their money. The edtech revolution lies in tatters. Byju Raveendran, the man who wanted to teach the world, ended up teaching the world a very different lesson. That valuation is vanity, and sanity is the only metric that matters. He mortgaged his own houses to pay salaries. A tragic final act of a captain trying to bail out a Titanic that had already snapped in half. In the end, the collapse of Byju's wasn't just about market forces or a post-pandemic slowdown. It was about the dangerous addiction to growth at any cost. It was about forgetting that an education company's primary stakeholder is the student, not the investor. It serves as a stark reminder that in the high-stakes world of venture capital, the higher you fly, the harder you fall. And when you fall from $22 billion, you don't just land, you crash.